Welcome everybody to my podcast, Big Little Small Talk. I'm Megan O'Hara-Sullivan and I love to talk, but I also love to listen. If you're new here, welcome. Thanks for joining me today. I hope you enjoy the episode. Welcome listeners to Big Little Small Talk, the show where we get to talk to someone interesting in the Toowoomba region community. And today I've got someone that I'm sure everyone will have heard of, someone who's a living legend, a legend in his own lifetime. He's laughing when I say that. But my guest today on Big Little Small Talk is former councillor, businessman, family man, grandad, champion of the speedway, and lots more to boot. And his name is Joe Ramia. Welcome along, Joe, to Big Little Small Talk.
Thank you, and it's great to be here and have a chat with you, Megan.
Yeah, well, there's few people that I think would be able to walk down the street and not get accosted by people that you've either done business with, done something for them in council. So tell me, you're out of council now. What are you doing with yourself these days?
Well, other than going to the doctors and dentists and eye specialists and ear specialists and other specialists, I still go up to work and do a little bit of work with the boys. When they see me coming, they tremble a little bit and they wish Dad wasn't there. But I enjoy going up there, and it gives me I suppose, a release from, other things. I love doing what I do. We meet a lot of people up there. We have chats. They say to me, Joe, when are you going to retire? We thought you retired, but, why give up something if you like to do it?
For sure. So I know when you were out of council for a term, you went back into the business, and you've told me the story about being back at work sort of when you really probably weren't really ready. Was that after you'd run for mayor? Was that what happened? Tell me about that.
Yeah, well, after I ran for mayor, and I guess it was something I had to do, and I wanted to do it because you may probably die knowing or not knowing whether you're going to be mayor or not. So, and I was told by 1,000 people, Joe, you're not going to get there. But, I do what I want to do, and I believe in my own convictions, and I'm the master of my own destiny, and I ran for it, and I got the greatest walloping I've ever had. But anyway, all that being said, I went back up to work, and I was helping Jamie and Lee there, and it was really tough leaving council. I mean, I missed the phone calls, I missed speaking to the people in the community, I missed going out to different functions around the region, and it's hard, Megan, I guess, when you've been doing it for, well, back then about 20 years of your life, to just cut the cord and say, righto, yesterday I was a councillor, today I am a civilian virtually, and you just don't walk away from it. I went through a bit of a terrible depression time, if you could call it that, just trying to get back to reality, and it's tough, and I feel for all politicians who have been there and then all of a sudden they're not re-elected or they decide to leave. The transition is a lot tougher than I think a lot of people think it is. It is a tough job.
I remember reading Gareth Evans after he wasn't Foreign Minister and he got out of politics, and he called it the relevance deprivation syndrome, and it is true. Yeah. You have no relevance, and even your diary just goes from being very full to not full. So there's a lot of time in the day, isn't there? When
the phone is the greatest, most probably invention this century, but it's most probably the worst thing you could have, because I guess when I was in council, continuously ringing, doing emails, messages, then it just stops. Yeah. And that's hard to readjust to. You sort of think, oh, no one loves me anymore, or no one wants to talk to me, or no one wants to say something, and you miss that, but it takes a bit of getting over. But I think if you can get a job or something, to take your mind off what you're thinking, it helps a bit. But yeah, it's
It was a
it's
bit
not
of a
easy.
shock. So then you came back and did one more term,
Mm-hmm.
and Was that so that you could go out on your own terms?
Well, I always believed that I wanted to go in the way I wanted to go in. I never had anyone ever help me as a councillor. Everything I did by myself. No one gave me a cent. No one helped me go and bang a sign in. No one helped me. I know a few people have pulled a few out for me, but no one. I had one sponsor or one helper during the mayoral run, and that was all declared. But I wanted to go in and go out on my own terms, and it was important to me. And I'm thankful I was re-elected, and I had another 4 years with a lot of good people, including yourself. It was a good council. I think Toowoomba, the region, achieved a fair bit, and I went out the way I wanted to go out, and that's important to me.
For sure, yeah, to walk away. I think another one, councillor Chris Tatey always said it's all about the dismount. And that's always stayed with me. It's all about the dismount, how you go out with dignity. Joe, tell me about how you got into local government. What was your thought processes and what happened?
Back in 1990, probably 88, 86, Toowoomba had a ward system. And it was only there for one term, and I put my name up, and I didn't know a real lot about wards then, and I didn't get in. But then, I got the urge that I'd like to do something for the community. I lived here all my life, met a lot of people throughout my job and what I used to do. And so I put my name up, and I did get in. And that was in 92. I think the then mayor was Ross Miller. Clive Berghofer had sort of resigned or through frustration, and Ross was deputy mayor. He became mayor for one year, I think, or 9 months. Then we had an election. He was elected as mayor, and I served under him.
Mm-hmm.
And Megan, there's not a lot in council to give councillors a lot of enjoyment other than doing something for their community. The buzz I get is when someone comes to me with a problem, and I take it to the officers who have been very good to me over my course at council, and it's done, and people don't normally ring you up and say thanks, and I don't expect it, but I guess that's the buzz you get. Otherwise, it's pretty hard work, and you've got to take a fair bit. But I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the different projects that Toowoomba has gone through.
Well, just while we're there on that, I wanted to ask you about the Empire debate, because it was pretty controversial at the time and pretty... I think your skin would have had to get pretty thick around that time. Tell me about that, and there's a lot of people listening to 40dB who wouldn't know the history of the Empire, so take us through it.
Yeah, back when Ross Miller was mayor, the Empire was in a derelict state. The University of Southern Queensland used to have classes in there. It was set up for that. And there was a wish to do the Empire up, right? And it wasn't unanimous. Some wanted, some didn't want it. Someone wanted to put a bulldozer through it. It was heritage listed. We went and had a look at it, and it was just in a shocking state. The pigeons were living in it, and you can imagine the mess they make in there. We had a council of 9. It ended up being a 5-4 council, which was a bit historic, because everything the 5 voted for, the 4 voted against, and vice versa. Don't worry whether it was good or bad. You just stuck to the solidarity and you supported your mate, which was not good. At the end of the day, the Empire got up, but it was, if I can use the terminology, a bloodletting process. I had people, and I do know a lot of people, I've worked with a lot who ring me up and say, Joe, we don't want the Empire. The city cannot afford it. these are people who I've known for 40, 50 years. If you vote for them, we're not going to support you, you know. But long and behold, you know, the Empire did get up. It's the only council I've been in where the Empire debate rolled into a next term of council, and we lost 6 of the 9 councillors, including the mayor.
Because of the Empire debate?
Because of the Empire, yeah. But you know, the election was in March, the Empire opened up, I think, in June, and to me it is truly the jewel in the crown of Toowoomba. You know, if we look around as a community, we have swimming pools, we have libraries, we have great sporting facilities, but when it comes to cultural, Toowoomba lacked a little bit. And the Empire, I think, was the evolution of a cultural revolution for Toowoomba. And, you know, when you look back at it, I feel sorry for the councillors who voted, supported and didn't get back on, because those tough decisions, those really hard ones that keep you awake, are usually the best ones for the community.
So, Joe, were you one of the only councillors who voted for it who got back on?
No, I think Peter Wood, who was Deputy Mayor then. There was Peter Wood, Councillor Elro, I think, Pauline and myself. Mm-hmm. And then the other 6 just, well, I guess were rejected by the community.
And the legacy is there for all of us to enjoy, and you're right. I wanted to ask you about another controversial debate that you saw through, and that was the water debate. So, you know, the issue of water security still rages here in Toowoomba and the region. So tell me about going through the water debate and how bitter was that?
Well, I thought the Empire was bad, but the water debate, especially at the end, and I was chair of the works where water was in that portfolio, and as drought bit harder and harder, not only here, but all over Australia, the community attitude changed, and it changed dramatically when, as a council, we looked at putting recycled water, and I'll use that term, today they call it manufactured water, back into the dam. And people didn't want that. And, you know, history records it. We had a vote on that, and it was like
Tell the
69.
listeners about the circumstances. So the federal government and the state government said that you had to have a referendum,
Yes.
and what about the wording of the referendum? How was that sort of decided on, and what was that contingent on funding? And can you remember?
The wording was whether I don't remember the exact words. Would you accept recycled water into our dams? And it words to that nature, you know. It was very simple, because in a referendum it's only a yes, no.
Or wasn't it, or we can look at it later? Wasn't that, or was that the campaign around the recycle?
Was the campaign, yeah.
Okay, so
the referendum was very simple. You either had to vote yes or no.
So the no campaign had a very well organised campaign that sort of said, well, you can say no now because we can look at it later. Is that how that went?
Oh, vaguely, I think so, but the problem that the council had is we had to prove every notion that came from a community. You proved to me there's no diseases or infections in the water. So, you know, council would have to do a lot of work to prove that. And no one would support it 100%. It was always 99.9%. No one was going to put their head in the guillotine. And it was tough. I mean, you know, as a city, and it started to get down to 15 and 14 and 13%
in the dams, yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know, some some people changed their minds. They said, well, maybe we should have changed. Maybe we should have voted for it. But then, at the end of the day, the city never ran out of water with the very severe restrictions. And you got to feel sorry for the people who were affected, the elderly people, the people who found it hard to manage. But, at the end of the day, we didn't run out of water. And on one day in January 2011, I think it was the 10th, the heavens opened up. And I can remember going up to Queen's Park about a year before that, and we had a prayer day for rain. It was a congressional thing, and we were there, and I think Pastor Shelton said, we need an inland tsunami to fill our dams.
And what happened?
On the 10th, 2011th of January, the heavens opened up. And, I'd never seen anything like it in Toowoomba in my life. And I know we had a couple of weeks ago with a lot of rain, but that day it dumped so much water on this city that those two creeks, East and West Creek, became virtual massive rivers that took everything in their way.
The power of a natural disaster. And
filled our dams up virtually in 2 or 3 days.
So I'll get to, that's an interesting comment of yours about the having the prayer day, the power of prayer, and I'll get to your own personal beliefs and your philosophy in life a bit later on. But I just want to finish off on your career in council. At one stage you were the deputy mayor. Who were you serving under then, Joe?
Diane Thorley was mayor. And it's a bit like the situation you have here. That year I didn't get the highest vote. There was a young lady there, Michelle got it. She does a bit of radio work. And because it was her first term, she felt she needed to do a term or two to get a bit of know-how, And she said, Joe, I don't want to be deputy mayor, right? But I still had to be elected, and I was, and I thanked the people who put me there. But, that was a tough call for that lady, because historically the highest vote getter in the council usually gets to be deputy mayor, or you vote for a deputy mayor. That happened. Michelle was a very good councillor, and she apparently only did one term, and that was a great opportunity to see the workings of council from a slightly different position to councillor.
Mm-hmm. And how did you find Di Thorley as just on the back of International Women's Day? I'm interested to see what and you've served under a few different mayors, male and female. Did you see any difference in style?
Yes, she was very, very, very sympathetic to her community. Her community was paramount. It didn't matter, and I can remember during her term there was a very horrific, if I can use the word, murder up in North Toowoomba. And, we went up there and met the people who were not involved in it, who were there at that party virtually when that sort of thing happened. And, she did as much crying as they were doing, because that was a horrific incident. And
would that have been a fairly common thing for a mayor to do that, or that was just her style that she wanted to? That was
her style. There's another incident. I think we had a softball championship in Toowoomba, and we were out at Carney Springs. We'd opened up the competition, and there was one girl there had lost her bag, or someone had taken it, and she had no clothes, and she was from I think Maryborough or Gympie. So what did the mayor do? She went down, took this girl with her and bought her clothes because this poor lass had nothing to wear virtually other than what she had on. Now, you don't get many people doing that. And, her heart was for the community. She was very sympathetic to what happened in the place, and some of the things I think she did really weren't council issues, they were more state and federal government, but her belief, she was mayor, this is my community and I'll look after my community.
And she gave it 110%, you reckon?
She did.
Yeah. That's interesting. Now, Joe, you mentioned before about going into the business. You've got a few different businesses. You've got your Orchie franchise and your ice, and not ice in the bad way, ice in the cold way.
Cold ice, yeah.
Cold ice. And I know I've seen you on New Year's Eve selling donuts at the fireworks, which we haven't done for a couple of years.
Very popular.
And the curly potatoes and things like that. How did you get into business? What was your start?
Well, I'm glad you asked me that question because there's a bit of a story to this. Back when I'd just been given bought the franchise for Orchie. We was up there packaging, and at that year, and I must probably 1982, we had about a month of rain in Toowoomba. I'm going back, and a lot of people will remember how it used to rain every day. Rain, mist, fog, miserable. And I just started in this business, and we just about went broke.
So what were you doing before that? Were you working for someone else?
Yeah,
or?
I was working for myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, doing fruit juice, different brand, yeah.
Okay, and you saw this franchise opportunity?
So, yeah.
And was it kind of a little bit out of your reach?
No. Previously I had been working for Orford Brothers, and I was packaging the orchard for them but not distributing it, so there was a change in what they did. Kerry Packer bought them out, and he owned the Tarina Spa, which is a sparkling mineral water, and then they were wholly and solely packaging Tarina Spa 24/7. They didn't want to have anything to do with fruit juice, so I started packaging it. We went through a very tough month, and while I was up there, a guy from White Wings called in. White Wings is like Defiance Flour, and he said, "Yeah, are you interested in a donut machine?" And I said, "Well, at least something warm. We want to make a few dollars out of this because we're not selling anything else." So I bought this it's a very miniature donut machine, and we used to make donuts up there for all the staff at Orphards at, not breakfast, morning tea. And then it just escalated from there, I had donut machines, fairy floss machines, etc., and then we went to Fates, and I built caravans and food vans and drink vans, and I guess that's how I started in that sector of what we do. And then we went out of donuts for a long time because
they were too diabolically unhealthy. White flour,
no,
cooked in oil, wrapped in sugar. You said, I need to do something.
But anyone who loves donuts, me, loves donuts.
For sure. Who doesn't?
It was such a slow process, where it used to take about 30 seconds to make one donut, and someone would order 6, and we'd have a queue about 50 deep, and someone would be waiting about an hour and a half to get one donut. So we put the machine away and went into other things, but now with high-speed machinery, and I went up to the Wonderland of Lights.
I know, I saw
you
there. We came off the Ferris wheel to a nice hot donut.
Yeah, and you know, this would be a great community event, the Wonderland of Lights. And my son and a couple of workers, we went there, we put 2 machines in, and that evening we made 2,500 donuts, which we gave to the people who attended that event. And it's not about promoting donuts, it was about putting something back into the community and people getting a bit of a buzz out of it, you know.
No, sorry, I got you confused because the last time I saw you selling donuts was at the Carnival of Flowers. That's correct, but you're talking about the Wonderland of Lights, which of course you are also involved with because you have an incredible finger in every community pie, don't you? So you were just up there giving donuts away, were you?
Yeah.
And you were making them, though?
Yeah, well, we had 2 machines that it would do, I think, about 1,100 donuts an hour. And as you know, the Wonderland of Lights only goes from 7 o'clock to 10 o'clock. So by 9 o'clock we had made and fed a lot of people.
I'm sure. So the grandkids and as well as your children now working in the business? Or not so much, well, I see your grandchildren working for free sometimes, or are they working for free or do they get paid by Granddad?
No, I give them 10 cents. Sometimes it's too much. No, the grandkids come up and they love that interaction with people and being able to serve and, you know, they're very good with ETPOS facilities. And sometimes the change confuses them, but they're getting better at it. But when it's something simple, you know, if you buy 6 donuts for $10 and the lady gives 20, they know they've got to give them 10 back. But, you know, if they buy a drink and, something else, it's a bit hard for them.
It's a bit trickier.
Yeah.
So you are Toowoomba born and bred. You went to St Mary's. I see that you're very involved in the St Mary's Old Boys Association. Did you do your whole schooling in Toowoomba?
Yes.
Yeah. Where did you go to primary school?
Well,
did you go to a few? Did you get kicked out of a couple, Joe?
No.
Nothing like that.
No. First, I went to Our Lady of Lourdes, because Our Lady of Lourdes was the only church or church school there. Then there was a priest called Father McMorrow. He virtually opened up St Anthony's. We lived in James Street, apparently on the wrong side. So all those who lived virtually going up James Street on the right-hand side had to go to Our Lady of Lourdes, and everyone on the left had to go to St Anthony's. And when you consider the people who lived on the left, there was a lot of Lebanese, the Hannas, the Beatrosses, the Sleevers, both Samaras, Kuris, you name it, you know. So Father McMorrow sort of populated the school very quickly. And then after that I went to St Mary's and finished my school in there.
Yeah. I know when the City Hall, the theatre here was renovated. Can you tell me, I know you told me a story one time where you said, all schools used to have their speech nights there, and you used to walk away with your trophies in a wheelbarrow because you got so many of them.
That Megan was tongue-in-cheek.
Was it?
Of all my schooling career at St Mary's, I could have carried out in one hand what prizes I got, but the reason that brought back some memories because we used to do gymnastics in there, and during the changeover from one grade or thing to the other, they'd have vaulting and gymnastics and things like that, you know, and we had a group of boys at school who used to do that. And, yeah.
I thought that the seating was all raked up to the ceiling.
It was, yeah. That theatre used to hold something like 2,500 people. They were the old type of seats, very comfortable. And the area up top where the spotlights and things were was half as big as the bottom area, you know. It was a magnificent theatre. And it's a pity it changed when they put a raked floor in it and you know, they made it into a very small contemporary theatre.
Right. So it wasn't all like that. It was a flat floor, and then
It
in your
was-
time,
It was virtually a flat floor with a bit of a gradient in it.
Right, and you
And
used to...
then I think Mayor Nell Robinson, in her era and her council, changed it into a contemporary theatre that held 600 or 700 people. You know, I guess that was a fashion at that time, but yeah.
So are you happy with the renovation as it looking now? Are you?
Yes, I am. I'm happy that theatre was able to be protected for future generations.
Yeah. Now, you did mention your athletics, and I think one of the most... I don't even know what the word is, Joe, but I did see a photo of you once in a pair of leopard trunks in your athletic gymnastic heyday. And it was excellent. So you were a trampoline champion, is that correct?
Back in that era, I used to do a lot of work for what they call national fitness, because you can remember back then the war just finished in 47, 48, and the Commonwealth government promoted this national fitness for a nation to keep fit. And there were these national fitness organisations all over the place. Up in Newtown Park, we had a hall up there, which is now the Rose Cottage. We used to do trampolining, vaulting, parallel bars and beam work and floor work. And that then is most probably no difference to what it is. That's what you did in that era. And we used to do a few things. That photo...
Was that a photo that was in the paper, or how do you have that still?
Well, that was taken by a photographer who was involved with National Fitness, and that pose was a pose of, I think if you ever see the Olympic tires, where the man is sort of semi-kneeling down with one hand on his knee and a discus in his hand, I think. And it was funny because that was sort of done in front of all the people there, and they lathered me up with oil. And I'd never had anything like this. I was more worried. Anyway, they finally done it, and they used it for some promotional work on brochures and things like that. But yeah, so I hid the photo, and I think my wife dug it out some years ago and gave it a bit of...
distribute it. Well,
yeah.
If the listeners want to go to our Facebook page, 102.7 FM Facebook page, perhaps Joe might supply me with the photo, and you can see it there in all its stunning glory. Joe, you said before about when Father McMorrow started up St Anthony's, and he came and got all the people who were living on the lower side of James Street, all the Lebanese families in Toowoomba. Tell me about your younger years. You were born in Australia of Lebanese parents, is that?
Yeah, Mum and Dad came out in the early 1900s. My brother, Gus, and myself were the only two in the family.
Is his full name Gus, or is that short for something?
No, Gus, yeah. And we lived in James Street. The dad came over, landed in Victoria, met a few other Lebanese friends up here. They sort of said, you know, Toowoomba, up Queensland, not a bad spot. He came up here, got a job.
What sort of work was he doing?
Well, he was in the fruit business. And that were the days when he never had a shop. He was like a fruit hawker. And they used to go around selling the fruit, yeah. Then my mother came up. Well, they used to come out here when they got the job, send over for their partner, or so that, you know...
so they had already married in Lebanon?
Yeah. So anyway, we settled in a little house in James Street, and we're in a community of other, like, people, like, you know, you can imagine coming from Lebanon or from any country that you know, there's no English spoken there. pretty hard to communicate. And I feel sorry for a lot of people we have in our own community who virtually have a disability in communicating with other people.
And you can see how isolating it is
Yeah,
that you don't.
yeah. So we settled there, and Dad kept working there, and he passed away in 1954 and left, well, 2 little boys. And
So how old were you when your father passed away?
I was born in 47, so I was 6 and a half.
Right. And Gus was younger?
No, he was 2 years older.
A bit older, right.
And it was just then that the state government recognised, I guess, Mediterranean people, because there were no benefits. Anyway, we started getting a few benefits, and thanks to, the state government, Legacy, St Vincent de Paul, for different gifts and help, because, that era was a tough era. We're not the only ones. There would have been thousands living in the same, I guess, issues we had. But those organisations were very helpful.
Not too many who were widowed, though. Your mother must have just been frightened out of her mind. So how was her English at this stage, and how did she get help?
Well, her English was virtually non-existent, and we used to have help from Legacy. They'd have a gentleman who come around, any paperwork he would help her with, because my brother and myself didn't know anything, and other Lebanese people weren't familiar with it. So we had a Legacy guy there, and he'd help us and got us through. And as we went to school and got a little bit older, we started to learn what we have to do. But it was a tough period. I don't say it wasn't. It really was, and I guess I grew up saying, if you're going to achieve anything in this world, you've got to get out there and work for it.
That's part of your sort of what framed you, do you think? That's
well, we used to go down every morning and dig in the garden and grow veggies, and I might add that my mother was a cripple. She had one leg that wasn't real good, and she struggled, and as she got older it got worse, and she was virtually then confined to a wheelchair because medical advancement hadn't caught up with it, and
And did you stay living in the same house? Was your mother able to access the up and down the steps, or how did you cope with that?
She very seldom went out.
Right.
She was virtually housebound. In the earlier days, growing up, we'd catch the bus, go downtown, do the shopping. She was quite good then, but as she got older, the injury or the deformity got worse.
And had she been injured, or was it like a cerebral palsy or something like that?
Just that her right leg, instead of both feet pointing forward, her right leg pointed a bit to the right, and as she got older, that issue became worse and got to a stage where she found it very hard to walk.
Mm-hmm. And I know I heard you speak one time at a disability forum, and you talked about that lived experience of living with your mother with a disability, and how that gave you an appreciation of just how difficult it is, let alone are we in the 1960s here? Is that the sort of era that you were? Yeah,
it was, back then it was like, how do you say, almost an embarrassment if you took someone to, say, church who had a problem or an issue, and because that was the era and people didn't want to know those people, if you know what I mean. They'd rather shut them out of their mind, out of their world, and let's move on to something else. But today it's very different, very different,
So you talked about being part of St Anthony's congregation.
Yeah.
Did your mother go to Mass on Sundays?
Yeah, we used to have, the church were very good. They'd send a car around, pick Mum up, and we all go to church, go on to communion, She'd get there with the walking stick, and everyone else had to you know, you can only go as fast as your slowest man. So,
yeah,
all woman, yeah, true.
Yeah.
But, you know, and then they used to bring communion around home to her.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Your brother Gus, what's happened to him? Did he go on to have an incredible work ethic like yours?
Oh, he was 2 years ahead of me. Nah. So when I was in sub-junior, he just finished senior. Then he went down to Calvin Grove to be a school teacher. He became a school teacher and he taught at Oakey and out at Southbrook and different areas around there. Then he and another guy who's still around today, who does a lot of work for the environment, used to go down to Murphy's Creek on the weekend, ring barking trees on properties, you know. And anyway, he had a terrible motorbike accident, and at that stage, I was in the CMF, just got married, and yeah.
So he was killed in a motorbike accident, was he?
Yeah,
Right.
he went, his mate went ahead of him, dirt road. He went over the bridge and my brother went the other side of the bridge and there was nothing there.
Right. Was your mother still alive at this stage?
Yes.
Oh my goodness. So she'd lost her husband and now her son.
Yeah.
Right. And you were alone in the world, Joe. You were married by then, and you.
I just got married.
Yeah. Did you marry a local girl?
Local girl, yeah.
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 Did you impress her with your gymnastics, or was she
was
more drawn to the businessman side?
No. She used to go to the club, but she wasn't that sort of girl. You know, there are a lot of girls who were very good at gymnastics, but Paulette wasn't. But anyway, we got married in October and my brother got killed in November.
Okay, right. And would that be if I've stalked your Facebook page over 50 years ago?
Beg your pardon?
If I've stalked your Facebook page correctly, would that be over 50 years ago that you and Paulette tied the knot?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you went on to have 4 children?
4 children, yeah. 2 boys, boy, girl.
Oh, too perfect.
Well, thank you, yeah.
And you enjoy the grandchildren, I can see.
Yeah, like we have 8 grandchildren. We got 4 and 2 are 6 here and 2 up at Malulabar, yeah. And yeah, it's good being sort of a granddad.
What do they call you, Joe?
Poppy.
Poppy.
Yeah.
What, I thought perhaps you've got a yellow Mustang, which I know is not just for your own enjoyment. I'll just tell the listeners this story because I know that you're a very modest person, but I'm not sure how you made contact with this person, but someone said to you, would you drive their daughter to their formal? So you turned up in your yellow Mustang with the Joe Pony number plate, is that right?
That's correct. Yeah.
Is that your love of cars and the speedway? Tell me about being involved in the speedway.
I've always admired and loved the Mustang because of its shape. And I got involved in speedway the last year of my school term, or school, you know, and it was, and I just love speedway, you know.
What do you love about?
What do I love about it? Oh, the fact that you can get into a car and go out there and
go as fast as you can.
Go as fast as you can, and you hit people and by accident, mind you.
Other cars, you mean?
Yeah, other cars, not people. Yeah, no. And it's just you know, I had a passion for it, and I've continued that up till this day. Yeah.
So you've been on the executive, you've been in the club, you've been working behind the scenes, I would imagine. Is that how that works?
I'm still doing that now, yeah.
You're still doing that. Tell me about the story when the cash for cans came in and you were out at the Speedway the day that it came in on the Saturday, and you told me a story about people being out there with their garbage bins.
Well, you know, cash for cans was... is a great concept to keep this country clean. And years ago when I was growing up, they had little soft drink bottles and used to get threepence or 3 cents, and you know, there was very, very little litter around the place. Then it went away to one-way bottles, and you know, the country got littered everywhere. Well, when cash for cans come in, everyone said, oh, 10 cents, that's a lot of money. We're out at Speedway and people would go and throw the can in the rubbish bin, and as soon as they throw the can, someone would pounce on it and dig through it and get the cans out, and we put a crate out there, you know, to collect them, and every time someone threw in, someone was pounced on it again and pulled the cans out, which, yes.
Well, the way that I remembered it, you said that you were just having your last sip of a soft drink and someone came and ripped it out of your hand.
Well, yeah, the little kid was standing there, and you know, you might have it and you put it down, he just grabbed it and kept going. I said, all right, eh?
Don't put it down. So, Joe, sort of getting towards the end of the tail end of our interview, which I have thoroughly enjoyed, I have to say. So, if someone said to you, what would you like Joe Ramia to be remembered for, what would you say?
Well, it's not something I've ever thought about. It's something that you grow up in a community, working for a community and helping people in a community. And if anything, that's all I'd ever want to be remembered for. You know, that you know, I did my share. I love this community. I love this region, and I'm not looking for any accolades or anything like that.
Yeah. So that your service to the community would be what you'd like to be remembered for. Yeah. Because beautiful. Yeah. Love it. So what about the purpose of life? You know, you ever thought about what the purpose of life is, or what you're here for?
Yeah,
you talked before about
wrong, I think about it.
Yes, right. If things go wrong, you think about it. Yeah.
Things do go wrong, and I guess when you're in business, especially the businesses we're in, the diversification we're in. I can remember when we installed a very large ice machine. I never thought this machine, we had so many problems, would ever make 1 kilo of ice. But we finally got it done, you know, and I think that life is about meeting the challenges that come up from day to day, you know. If you can get over them, if you can sort them out, if you can fix the problem, I think in yourself there's a sense of achievement that, you know, you virtually ticked that one. And you know, there's and I've used this a couple of times, a bus coming around the corner with more challenges on it. When that bus has been around Megan, there's another one coming around. And that's life, you know. Every day is different, and then you've got to face them head on.
Yeah.
Some of them you can get over them, some of them you can't.
And your sense of humour, you think that's carried you through? Your sense of optimism and sense of fun?
If you can't laugh at yourself and laugh at doing things, you might as well give it up, because that has carried me through, and I hope I still have it. Sometimes I get a bit frustrated and a bit aggro, you know, but I think back of all the wonderful people that have helped me, and
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen you a bit frustrated and a bit aggro. I don't think so. All right, what about this one? If you could only store one type of food in your pocket, what would you carry? I shouldn't exclude donuts, because that might be the obvious answer.
It's probably an apple, because they tell me an apple a day keeps the doctors away. I don't know whether that's true anymore, but you know, I guess to me, something I love, and I love all fruit, mangoes especially, but I'd stay with an apple. I love apples.
And it's going back to your opening comments when you said you've been going around, traipsing around from one specialist to the other. Maybe you haven't got enough apples in your pocket.
No, I'd need big pockets.
Okay, so if you could do anything illegal, Joe, without getting caught, what would you do?
Now that's an interesting question. I'm not going to say I'd rob a bank. I wouldn't do that. I think if you could do anything illegal, I'd like to hop in a race car or a sprint car and drive down the highway. I think that'd be fairly illegal, but I wouldn't want to get caught. I know where I'd end up, but that'd be something really different, you know.
Going as fast as you can in the Joe
Yeah.
pony and the yellow Mustang, for sure. Now, Joe, did you have an imaginary friend when you were younger? And if so, what was his or her name?
Well, I'm glad you said her, because I think I'd love to have a genie that every day I could say to that genie, you know, end the world war in Russia or Afghanistan or, you know, Malaysia or Vietnam, because I don't know, the world is in a terrible state, and the only thing you get from wars is death, as we've seen on TV now, and the frustration, people walking out with just nothing really other than their children in their arms, you know. But yeah, Jeannie'd be good. She could do all that for me, plus a few other little things.
Cups of tea,
my little
that sort of thing.
bucket list, yeah.
Joe, that's a beautiful answer. I've not had anyone say something like that before. It's really lovely to hear you say that. And you've talked about your career and all the things that you've done, and it's certainly an impressive career. What would you say the biggest risk that you've ever taken has been?
Most probably opening up cold stores.
Cold stores?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
These are big freezer rooms where we store product, like, you know, processed mango juice or orange juice or pineapple juice in drums where manufacturers use it to make product. The fact that I had to build this room, you know, and when I'm talking about this room, I'm talking a room that is 30, 40 metres long, 8 metres high, and it's got a 75 kilowatt horsepower or kilowatt motor run it to keep everything frozen, and the cost of electricity to do that, and the hesitation that if I build this and no one uses it, or one person brings in 4 pallets of frozen chickens, it's going to cost me about $200 a day to keep 4 pallets of chicken in there. But that procrastination, that hesitation, was most probably the biggest I had to deal with. But can I say, Megan, once you've made the decision to do something, you need to follow your convictions and just do it. And I still believe in the saying, build it and they'll come. The only thing is, I don't think anyone's ever built a cold room big enough, because no matter how big you build it, it's always too small.
Well, that's a lesson.
Yeah, well, it is, you know, and we've just opened a facility up the north coast, and
so the risk has paid off.
Well, yeah, you know, and we went from something for a couple of $100,000 30 years ago to something now that costs us $5.5 million to build.
Right. So, well, it's an inspiration, Joe, for sure. Yeah. Now,
but
tell me, are you a dancing man?
Not for a very long time. I used to do a fair bit of rock and roll down at these national fitness camps at Tullabudra, and that era was the late 50s, early 60s, and I guess record of the day was Rock Around the Clock by Bill Haley.
So if you hear Rock Around the Clock come on, you can't stay off the dance floor even
now?
Well,
don't worry about the dance floor. When I hear it just brings back all these memories and the fun even in the car, you know, you put the window down, start tapping on the roof, and yeah, but they're beautiful memories, you know, we had a lot of good times down there, and it was a part of growing up.
For sure, yeah, lovely. All right, my very last question. bit tragic of me, but I love the royal family. I love stalking them on my social media and wasting my time, which is, yes, very tragic. I don't know whether you quite have the love of the royals that I do, but if I was to ask you who your favourite royal is and why, Joe?
Well, probably the favourite royal would have to be Harry.
Please
what
explain. Please explain.
Well, Harry's the sort of guy who broke the mould and got away from the stereotype royal and what a royal has to do. He was out there, he went to parties, he did things that most of us, well, that's why I say most of us have done it, parties, got up to the shenanigans, and most probably we can all relate to those sort of things because some part of our lives we've been there. I guess what I don't like about what he's doing is, I think Megan's a very nice lady, he's hanging the dirty washing out all over the world, which to me is not becoming of a royal, you know. Okay, he split the scene, he should be happy with what he's got, and he needs to leave his grandparents and the monarchy do their own thing and let them face their own challenges. But, you know, that's the part that disappointed me with him when he was on Oprah and he dumped on the family, and I thought that was very unbecoming of him, but I like him for what he did and how he had the guts to get out there and do what he wanted to do, you know. Yeah. And that's important to me because, you know, I sort of, not having a father to guide you, you sort of grow up. If you're going to do it, just go and do it. If it falls over, it falls over. If it works, move on to the next project. And that's how Harry is, you know. He's moved on. He's probably better off than he's ever been, and he doesn't have the scrutiny of the royals that the rest of the families have.
Yeah, what a beautiful answer, Joe. And probably more telling of your true character in terms of having a go. Just try it, have a go.
Yeah, have a go.
Joe, your service to this community cannot be underestimated, but I think the thing that I love about you most is your humility. So you've never tried to sort of big note yourself as the longest I've known you, and you've always just been the most humble, hardworking human I know.
Well, I'll put this out there, you know, you may even want to use it sometime. I'm good at photography, so if you ever need a photo, you know, Megan, at one stage I had one job to do, only one job, was to get a photo of the Lions team coming across the finish line.
The Hungry Lions, the sporting team.
Lions.
Yeah.
I turned away for a split second and I couldn't find them. But anyway, and I don't think I'll ever live that one down.
Well, with that, Joe, I'll say thank you. And if you ever want to try and look up the Hungry Lions coming across the Millen Bay Challenge, which we did running up and down Jubilee Park and Redwood Park, and we were completely exhausted. We said to Joe, please take a photo as we come across the finish line. I'm not sure that photo exists because Joe was talking to someone. You're probably offering to lend a hand to someone if I know you. But Joe, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for being my guest on Big Little Small Talk today.
Thank you, Megan.
That's it for this week. Thanks for joining me on Big Little Small Talk. I hope you can make the time to join me next week. If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe on your favourite podcast app.